Hello everyone. In this video, we are going to discuss about what is DevSecOps and its principles, and also we'll discuss about the advantages of DevSecOps. Before discussing about DevSecOps, let us discuss about Software Development Lifecycle. Software Development Lifecycle, or SDLC, is a process or methodology which is used to design and develop high-quality software products. This lifecycle consists of many phases like planning and requirement analysis, the design of the software, the development of the software, the testing, the deployment, and finally the maintenance. These are the main phases of most of the software development life cycles. We have different models which implement this software development life cycle. For example, waterfall model, agile model, and so on. In waterfall model, all the phases will be executed in sequence. Here in the diagram we can see that the planning and requirement analysis phase. Once this phase is completed, then the design of the product will be started. Once the design is completed, then development. Once development completes, then testing, then deployment, and then maintenance. So all these phases will be executed in sequence. Generally, this model will be used when the requirements are very clear and they are stable. When the requirements are stable, means they will not change very often, then we can go with waterfall model. The drawback of this model is it cannot adapt to the changing of requirements. For example, during development, if we see any requirement changes, again the planning and requirement analysis will be started and the design needs to be changed and again the development needs to be changed. This way it cannot adapt to the changing of requirements. The next model that implements software development lifecycle is Agile model. In Agile model, instead of completing the project in one go, each project will be divided into multiple iterations. If you see in the diagram, this is one iteration, this is another iteration, and so on. So we'll have like multiple small iterations. In each iterations, we'll have similar phases like waterfall model. That means we'll have plan and requirement analysis, design, development, testing, deployment and maintenance. So all these phases will be there in each of the iterations. In each iteration, a small number of features or bug fixes will be delivered as per the requirements. The advantage of this model is it will adapt to the requirement changes which occur very often. And for every iteration, we can deliver some of the features and we can show to the customer. So based on the customer feedback, we can decide for the release and we can plan for the next iteration. The complexity is the drawback of this model. Till now we have discussed about software development lifecycle. We also discussed about two models, waterfall model and agile model. Now let us discuss about DevSecOps and we'll see how it helps these models, the software development lifecycle, very effectively. What is DevSecOps? It is a combination of practices, tools and organizational philosophies which help the organizations to deliver the projects or products more agility, security and reliability. So basically it helps the organizations to deliver the projects or products with more velocity. That means we'll have more deliveries in a specified period. And also the project deliveries will happen with more reliability, means more stability. And also the projects which will be delivered will be more secure. As the name indicates, the dev team, the operations team and security team should work together to make the software deliveries to be more reliable and to be more secure. So for the successful implementation of DevSecOps, a change in culture and mindset of the organization is needed. More collaboration should happen between multiple teams like dev team, operations team and security team and other teams. More automation is needed. We should use more automation tools to automate most of the processes in the software development lifecycle. Now let us discuss about the practices of DevSecOps. There are various practices which need to be followed to effectively implement DevSecOps in the organizations. We will discuss more about these practices individually in each of the next videos, but let us summarize what are the important practices which need to be followed. The first one is the continuous integration and continuous delivery, or CI/CD. Continuous integration effectively integrates the code of each of the developers very often during development lifecycle. Since the integration of code by all developers is done very often, this will minimize the integration errors which may be found at later point of time. As part of this continuous integration, there are several concepts and tools are used. For example, source code version control. This is used to store various versions of the code so that we can go to any revision of the code. And automated builds are part of CI. That means whenever developers check in their code to version control tool, the builds will happen automatically, which compiles the code, packages the code, which runs the integration testing, which also runs the code quality checks, and so on. When all these processes run, the developers will be notified about any issues in the code or if any code quality errors in the code. So all those things will be notified to developers as a feedback process. So this feedback process via automated builds will run very often so that the developers can correct their codes as early as possible in the development lifecycle. And also all the developers code is integrated, the integration errors will be minimized in the early phase of the development lifecycle. In addition to automated builds and code quality checks, we also run security and compliance checks. If any security vulnerabilities are present in the code, those will be found at early phase of the development lifecycle. Similar to continuous integration, we have continuous delivery. So this continuous delivery allows to deploy our code into multiple environments very often. Whenever developers check in their code, in addition to the CI process, which runs the automated builds, automated testing, code quality checks, and so on, it will deploy the code to a particular environment like development environment, test environment, and so on, the automated deployments. So this will deploy the code automatically in a particular environment. The continuous delivery ensures the check-in of our code will lead to deployment into multiple environments. So once the deployment completes in all environments, then after reviewing of the deployments, the management will decide whether we can go with production deployment as well. Here we also have automated testing, which includes the functional testing, regression testing, integration testing, and so on. If these testing processes are automated, then it will be easy to implement the end-to-end CI/CD pipeline in the organizations. So this CI/CD is one of the important practices which are being followed by various organizations. The next one is infrastructure as code. In all the organizations, we have infrastructure management. We need to manage all the infrastructure which is used by several teams in the organizations. So we are responsible for maintaining the infrastructure like the machines we create, the networking part, certificates, load balancers, and so on. Either we can manage this infrastructure manually or we can create and maintain the infrastructure as code. For example, if we want to create a virtual machine, we can represent the virtual machine as a code or a database as a code. Some of the advantages of this infrastructure as code are we can reuse the code for creating multiple environments. We can reduce the configuration errors because we do not need to do anything manually except changing the configuration files. And also we can create the infrastructure very quickly. So for representing the infrastructure as code, we need to use some of the automation tools like Terraform, Ansible, and so on. The next one is configuration management. When the infrastructure is created, we need to create and maintain the applications. We can deploy the applications and corresponding configurations either manually or automatically in different environments like dev, testing, production, and so on. So we need to apply different configurations for different environments while deploying those applications. If we represent this configuration as code, we can easily perform automated deployments in various environments by applying corresponding configuration in a particular environment. We have several tools for managing these configurations like Ansible, Chef, and so on. The next practice is observability. This means the infrastructure and the applications which we manage need to be observable. They need to produce proper logs, metrics, and tracing information, and so on, which can be used for analyzing the health of the infrastructure and the health of the application, and for generating various KPIs which can be used by higher management to take corresponding decisions. So the applications and infrastructure should produce corresponding logs, and we need to store those logs in some centralized logging database. And also the applications and infrastructure should generate various metrics, and we can analyze those metrics to understand the health of the systems as well as to generate the KPIs of the applications. So these also need to produce corresponding traces of the system which can be used to identify the performance bottlenecks of the infrastructure as well as various applications. The next practice is security. As the name indicates, the DevSecOps includes security. This security needs to be implemented across different layers of the infrastructure as well as application development lifecycle. When developers develop the code, they need to implement various best practices of security to reduce the security vulnerabilities, security issues, and so on. Various security measures we have to implement like authentication strategies, authorization strategies, proper implementation of passwords, TLS certificates, and so on. We also need to implement proper security strategies while deploying our code in external premises like cloud environments like AWS, Azure, GCP, and so on. The next practice is containerization. This allows to deploy our applications as containers. If we deploy our applications as containers, our application portability will be improved. That means the container can run on any machine where corresponding container engine is installed, for example Docker. That means we can easily move our applications from one machine to another machine or to cloud and so on. And also if we use container orchestration platform like Kubernetes, then we can easily scale the application, and also we can use the auto healing features. When any issues in the applications will be restarted automatically. And also the observability of the applications can be improved if we use containers. Another practice is instant response. Once we have the infrastructure created and the applications are deployed, there may be some issues in the infrastructure and applications. In those cases, the users will raise incidents. So this instant response will allow us to manage these incidents, means how we respond to the incidents. Here we need to consider various things like SLAs or service level agreements with our customers while resolving the issues. These are various practices of DevSecOps. In addition to these practices, as I told earlier, the communication and collaboration is very important because the collaboration and communication between various teams are needed to successfully implement all these practices in the organization. We have seen various practices of DevSecOps. These practices can be applied to both waterfall model as well as agile models. Now we have seen what is DevSecOps, and also we have seen various practices of DevSecOps. Now let us see what are the advantages of DevSecOps implementation in the organization. The first and main advantage is the agility of the applications will be improved. Since we involve more automation things as part of DevSecOps implementation, so most of the processes will be automated, like the builds, deployments, testing, configuration management, containerization, and so on. All these automation features will allow the developers to concentrate more on latest features instead of worrying about the infrastructure, configurations, and so on. This way, the agility will be improved a lot when we implement DevSecOps in the organization. The automation also allows us to have frequent releases and deliveries because our continuous delivery approach allows us to deploy the application in various environments automatically. The reliability of infrastructure and applications will be improved a lot. This is because if any issues in the code, they will be identified in the early stages of the development lifecycle. This is with respect to our continuous integration, continuous delivery. So all these features help us to increase the reliability of our applications. The scaling process also will be improved because the application can be deployed easily through automated deployments, and also if we use containers, we can increase the scalability of the system. And also the collaboration and communication between various teams will be improved as part of the DevSecOps implementation in the organization. And also the applications will be more secure because all the security features will be included in the early stages of our development lifecycle. These are some of the advantages of implementing DevSecOps in the organization. So in this video, we have seen what is DevSecOps. So before that, we have discussed about software development lifecycle. We have considered two models, waterfall model and agile model. Later, we have discussed what is DevSecOps and various practices of DevSecOps. And also we have seen various advantages of implementing DevSecOps in the organization. We'll discuss about various practices which we discussed in this video in detail in the coming videos. I hope this video is useful. Thanks a lot for watching.